Okay, this is a 200 Q&A number one. The terms are Dr. Mandela, Dr. Kaspa, and X-rays. Do you recall if they took your blood pressure or not?
No, they did not take my blood pressure.
Do you recall if they checked your eyes?
No, they didn't do that either.
Aside from asking you if you were injured, what else did they do for you, if anything?
They didn't do anything. They just left me there.
Did you leave the accident scene at some point?
Yes. We went home to call for a tow truck, and then I went back to the scene.
How long after the accident was it before you left the scene of the accident?
I stayed there for at least an hour before I left to call a tow truck.
You didn't have a cell phone with you there?
No, I had left it at home.
You said the ambulance arrived at the same time as the tow truck, is that correct?
Yes.
You said during that same hour you had called for a tow truck?
Yes.
In the hour before the ambulance arrived at the scene of the accident, before you called the tow truck, what were you doing?
I was sitting there waiting to see if the police were going to get there.
Do you know if someone called the police after the accident?
I don't know. I guess I assumed that someone would call them.
But you didn't call the police, is that correct?
No, I couldn't. I didn't have my phone with me.
Did you ask someone at the scene of the accident to call the police for you?
No.
You said that you left and went back home once the ambulance left the scene, is that correct?
Yes.
At some point in time, did you seek any medical treatment for your injuries from the accident?
Yes, I did.
Who did you seek treatment from for your injuries?
I went to see Dr. Mandela first, as I recall.
Did you at some point seek treatment from Dr. Kaspa?
Yes, I did.
Do you recall how soon after the accident it was that you saw Dr. Kaspa?
It was either the next day or maybe 2 days after the accident.
Who referred you to Dr. Kaspa?
I was referred by a good friend of mine.
You had never been to Dr. Kaspa before, correct?
Never.
How many visits did you have with Dr. Kaspa?
I must have seen him at least 3 times.
What kind of treatment did you receive from him?
He took x-rays and talked to me about the accident.
Did he prescribe any medication for you?
Yeah, he did give me something for the pain.
Do you remember what it was he prescribed?
I don't remember.
Do you have the prescription filled?
Yes.
Did you take the prescription as directed?
Yes.
Do you recall if it was effective in reducing the pain?
Yes, it was.
Do you recall how many times you saw Dr. Mandela for the injuries you sustained in the accident?
I think I went to him for at least a month afterwards.
Dr. Kaspa works in the same building as Dr. Mandela, is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Was that once a week for a month?
Yes, once a week.
Did Dr. Mandela ever release you to return to work?
No, he didn't.
At any point in time during the time you treated with him, did he tell you that you couldn't return to work?
He said I was in real bad shape.
But at any point did he tell you that you couldn't go back to work?
I don't remember if he said that exactly.
You were off work for a month, is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Do you recall if Dr. Mandela told you that you couldn't work during that month-long period?
Yes, he did.
Was he specific about how long you should stay off work?
I don't know the exact date he told me.
Do you recall Dr. Mandela signing work slips to get you out of work for a month?
I can't remember.
Aside from Dr. Mandela and Dr. Kaspa, did you treat with any other doctor for your injuries from the accident?
No.
Do you have any future appointments with Dr. Kaspa?
No, I don't.
Do you have any future appointments with Dr. Mandela?
No, I don't.
Did either of those two doctors recommend that you get physical therapy for the injuries you sustained in the accident?
No, I don't think they did.
Did Dr. Kaspa recommend that you do any special exercises for the injuries?
No, he didn't.
Did he recommend that you wear a brace around your neck?
Yeah, I did wear a brace for a while.
It was Dr. Kaspa who recommended the brace?
Yes.
How long did you wear the brace?
I kept it on my neck for 2 weeks.
Are you still using the brace?
No.
Did Dr. Kaspa recommend that you wear a brace for your back?
No, he didn't.
Are you still taking pain medication he prescribed for you?
No, I'm not.
When was your last appointment with Dr. Kaspa?
Oh, let's see. It was a year ago now.
Did you have any appointments with him in 2015?
No, I didn't. We were done for the treatment by then.
Do you feel that you still have medical issues due to the injuries you sustained in the accident?
No, not really, no.
Does your neck bother you still?
No, not anymore.
Can you remember the last time your neck bothered you?
It's been quite a long time.
Fair to say it's been more than a year since your neck last bothered you?
Yes, it's been at least a year.
What about your back? Does your back still bother you?
No, not at all.
Has it been more than a year since it last bothered you?
Yes, it's been a little more than a year.
To your knowledge, are there any activities that you no longer can do because of the injuries you sustained? Okay. Then Q&A number 2 at 200. The terms are Nanda, Darren, and Tamika. Do you recall whether or not Nanda talked to you about taking your temperature?
Yes,
Do you recall what was said in that regard about your temperature?
she said that I didn't have a temperature.
So you had already taken your temperature when you called her?
I took it while I was on the phone with her.
Oh, all right. How did you take it?
I took it orally.
You put a thermometer in your mouth
Yes.
and you were able to talk on the phone while you had the thermometer in your mouth?
No. I believe Darren talked to her while I was taking my temperature.
So then, as I understand it, when Nanda called you, Darren was the first one to speak with her. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then the phone was handed to you at some point. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And then you handed the phone back to Darren. Is that correct?
I don't recall whether or not she was still on the phone waiting while I took my temperature or if it was afterwards.
If it was afterwards, then I assume you could not have told her what your temperature was during the phone conversation, right?
True.
But you do recall there was a conversation with Nanda about taking your temperature. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that you did take your own temperature, right?
Yes, I'm sure that I took it myself.
I think you testified that it was normal. Is that correct?
Yes, it was normal. That is correct.
But you don't recall ever discussing your pulse rate with Nanda. Is that correct?
No, I don't recall that we discussed my pulse rate that night.
Just to make sure that I have this right, you don't recall talking to Nanda about taking an enema. Is that correct?
No, I don't recall any mention of an enema.
And then I think you testified that you talked to her about monitoring the baby's movements. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
What was said in regard to monitoring the baby's movement?
She told me to check for so many movements per hour, but I don't recall the specifics.
As the phone call with Nanda ended, who was the last person on the phone before the phone was hung up?
I believe it was Darren on the phone with her, but I'm not sure.
But it's fair to say that before the conversation with Nanda ended, each of you had a chance to speak with her at least once. Is that correct?
Yes, we both got to talk to her during that call.
If Darren had been the one to hang up, then he would have spoken with her twice. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Did Nanda tell you that she wanted to know the results of that 1 hour monitoring as soon as possible?
No, she didn't say anything more about it.
To your knowledge, she never asked either you or Darren to inform her of the results. Is that correct?
She didn't mention it to me or him.
Did she ever tell you she wanted to know the results of what your temperature was?
No, she didn't ask for the results of that either.
So as best you can remember, Darren was the one who hung up the phone.
Yes, that's correct.
And then I believe your testimony is that you took your temperature and it was normal. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Did you then check the baby's movements for 1 hour?
Yes, we did.
Do you recall what the result of that count was?
I can't remember the specifics of it.
Do you recall anything about the count?
I believe that it was normal. I recall that it was within the range of what Nanda had asked me to find.
Is it your testimony that you don't recall her ever saying to you over the phone that she wanted to hear back from you and Darren in an hour with the results of what she had spoken to you about?
That's correct. She did not ask for the results.
Did Nanda call your house back about an hour later that night after the phone conversation?
Yes, but she got our voicemail.
So even though the two of you were there, you let the machine pick it up rather than answering it yourself?
Yes, that's correct.
Were you able to hear the messages as they came in?
No, we were not able to hear them.
So you let the call come in and the machine records it, and then when the call ends, you can play it back and hear who called. Is that correct?
It beeps so that we know that there has been a message left, and we call in and play the message back.
So you hear a beep and then you can respond by listening to the message over the phone. Is that correct?
Yes, it's a message center that we call.
So you don't really know who is calling you on those calls unless you have caller identification.
Yes, that's correct.
And you have to wait until you get beeped and then you can listen.
Yes.
After you got beeped that you had a message, did one of you then call on the phone to hear who the call was from?
Yes, it was Darren who listened to the message.
Did he come back in the room where you were and tell you that it was Nanda calling?
Yes, he did.
Did you call the message center also to listen to Nanda's message?
Yes, I did.
Do you recall what she said in her message?
She said, Tamika, I forgot to ask you to call me if there is any change in the baby's movement.
Is that all she said in that message that you can recall?
Yes, that's all she said. Nothing more. It was a short message.
And you testified that in the... So I was trying to keep going and you were taking it away.
First 180.
This is 180 Q&A number 1, and Mrs. Collins, Sally Ann Collins, Brown Road, Virginia Beach, Virginia, Robert Collins, Chief Petty Officers Club, Naval Air Station, Corpus Christi, Mike and Donna Richardson, Daiquiris, Lee Manor Apartments, Richardson's, Mike, Mrs. Richardson, Richardson, Mr. Richardson. For the record, Mrs. Collins, will you state your full name?
Sally Ann Collins,
What is your present address?
5169 Brown Road, Virginia Beach, Virginia.
You are married to Robert Collins, who is sitting here during the deposition. Is that correct?
Yes, I am.
When were you all married?
We were married on November 28, 1959.
Is this the only marriage that you have had?
This is correct.
Do you all have any children?
We have 3 boys and 1 girl.
I want to ask you some questions about an accident you were involved in. Directing your attention back to that evening, where had you all been prior to the accident?
The Chief Petty Officers Club, Naval Air Station, Corpus Christi.
And what was the occasion for you all having gone that evening?
My 32nd birthday.
Was it a party where there were several people involved?
No, just 2 couples.
What were the names of the other couple?
Mike and Donna Richardson.
About what time did you all go to the Chief Petty Officers Club?
Somewhere between 8:30 and 9, I believe.
Did you all have anything to drink while you were there?
Yes, we did.
What time did you leave the club?
I believe it was about 11 p.m.
I guess you all are regular members of the club, are you not?
No, we are not members.
Were the Richardsons members of the club?
Yes, he is a Chief Petty Officer.
What is your husband's rank?
He is now a warrant officer.
What did you all do there at the club?
We had dinner.
Did you have anything to drink?
Yes, we had some drinks.
Do you remember what you all drank?
I believe I drank daiquiris.
Do you know how many you had?
I had 3 or 4 drinks during the course of the evening.
What about your husband?
I don't exactly remember what he was drinking.
Did he have about the same amount that you all were drinking?
I would say so.
Everybody had a round every time?
Yes,
So whatever drinking was done was about equal among all 4 of you.
that is right.
Did you all dance?
We did.
In other words, you had a good time out there that evening.
Yes.
Were you living in Corpus Christi at the time?
I can't remember the address. It was in the Lee Manor Apartments.
Did the Richardsons live in the same apartment?
No, they didn't.
Do you recall about what time you all left the club?
I believe it was a little after 11.
Did you go anywhere else before the accident?
No, we were going home.
Who was driving the car?
Mike was driving the car.
Where were you sitting in the automobile?
In the back seat behind the driver.
Your husband was sitting to your right?
He was.
I suppose Mrs. Richardson was in the right front seat.
She sat in the front next to her husband.
Do you recall what you all were talking about on the way from the club up to the time of the accident?
No, not really. Just general conversation.
Nothing that sticks out in your mind in any way?
I remember our mentioning about the car being stopped there.
Well, what is your recollection, Mrs. Collins, of the first thing you saw in connection with this accident?
There was a car stopped underneath a yellow flashing light.
How far away was this car?
I really don't know. It was in the distance. I know that.
Do you recall who first noticed it?
No, I do not.
Were you the first one to see it?
I don't remember.
You might possibly have been the first one to notice it.
I really don't know.
Do you recall specifically what was said or who said anything about the automobile?
No, I don't. It was mostly the four of us just wondering why the car was stopped there. It seemed very unusual.
But you think now you all noticed the car, wondering why it was there, and then you started talking about something else.
Whatever our conversation had been, we just continued on with our conversation.
Went back with your normal conversation.
Yes,
Well, did you see the car when it was first mentioned?
I saw it, yes.
Then did you take your eyes off of it after that?
I believe I did.
Went on about your regular conversation.
This is right.
Everybody in the car went back to the topic they were discussing before the car was mentioned.
Correct.
How far away do you think the car was?
I really couldn't say.
Was it visible in the headlights of the Richardson car?
It was down the road, a good distance, I would say, ahead of us.
Beyond the headlights.
That is true.
But you could tell it was stopped?
I could tell that.
Could you tell what kind of car it was or what color it was or anything like that?
It seemed like it was a small yellow car.
This is what you observed when you first noticed?
That is right.
Then when was your attention next brought to the car?
I don't really remember. I remember Mr. Richardson slowing down behind the car, and that is about all that I remember.
Do you remember what kind of car? Okay, this will be 180 Q&A. Louis O'Brien, Jefferson Avenue, David Jones, Main Avenue, Mr. O'Brien, Jones, Lou O'Brien, Judge Jenkins. Q&A 180. Do you know the defendant sitting there?
Yes,
How long do you know him?
a couple of years.
Did you see Louis O'Brien before April 12, 1994?
Yes,
Where did you see him?
in a house on Jefferson Avenue.
Whose house was it?
It was David Jones's house.
How long do you know David Jones?
Oh, for a couple of years.
Was there a discussion between you and Mr. O'Brien at that time about any supermarket at 92 Main Avenue?
There was.
Tell us in your own words what the conversation was that you had and who said what.
I don't remember. I can't remember.
Do you remember what was said about 92 Main Avenue?
Yes,
What was said?
we were discussing the layout of the place and how many people worked in there, and it would be best to go and look over it.
What was the purpose of your surveying it?
We were going to rob it.
Did there come a time that you and O'Brien met after this appointment in Jones's house that you told us about?
No.
Did you see him April 12, 1994?
Yes,
Where did you see him?
downstairs on Main Avenue.
Who, if anybody else, was there?
Me, O'Brien, and Jones.
Tell us what happened. By the way, what time in the morning did you meet, if you recall?
7:30.
What happened after that you recollect seeing with your own eyes?
I went in the store to find out how many people were in there. After casing the place, I bought some orange juice and a newspaper and went back upstairs. I came back down. Jones was coming out of the store. He had been shot in the leg.
Did you see O'Brien?
Not until after he came out of the store.
Did you see him exit the store?
Yes, I did.
Did you see a weapon?
All he had was a bag.
He had a package?
Yes.
Anything else in his hand?
No, I didn't see nothing else.
What kind of package was it?
A regular paper receptacle.
Were you there when O'Brien and Jones went into this store?
I was upstairs.
Did you see O'Brien go into the store?
The last time I seen him was when he came out of the store.
You went into the store and bought something?
Juice and paper.
Then what?
He left. I told him how many people were in the supermarket.
In other words, you met them on the way out.
They piled into the car.
Where?
On the corner.
Whom did you talk to?
I talked to Jones and O'Brien.
Was there any discussion about a weapon by Jones or O'Brien?
No talk.
How many people were in the supermarket?
2 customers
Anyone else?
and the owner.
Did you know the proprietor?
No, sir.
What did you do with the juice and paper?
I went to my apartment
Where?
across the street.
At what address?
67 Main Avenue.
What floor?
21st floor.
You took the elevator upstairs?
Yes.
then came downstairs.
Yes.
What time was that?
After 8,
Where did you go when you came out of there?
I peered in the car.
Was anybody there?
No.
Then where did you proceed?
I slouched around at the corner.
How far is the corner from the supermarket entrance?
I think about 7 doors away from the exit.
Then what occurred?
I kept the supermarket front under surveillance,
What else were you doing?
looking out for the police.
So you were playing lookout, true?
Yes.
Did you hear any shots fired?
No.
Did there come a time when you saw Jones and O'Brien?
I did.
Whom did you see first?
Jones.
What was he doing?
He was limping
Where was he coming from?
from the supermarket.
The supermarket?
Yes, right, sir.
You say he was limping?
Limping.
What else did you see?
He had a blood stain on the knee part of his trousers.
Was he carrying anything in his hands?
He was empty-handed as far as I saw.
Was he running?
He was like hobbling along
In what direction was he limping?
towards me.
How soon after you saw David Jones did you see Lou O'Brien?
About 10 or 11 minutes.
What was he doing?
He had a bag.
What was in the bag?
Silver coins.
You saw that?
I saw that.
Did he have any bills? Did he have any ones, fives, tens?
Not those, no.
Have you told us everything in your remembrance?
Just about.
With respect to this robbery, did you expect to receive a share of the loot?
No.
There was no agreement to that end?
No.
What did you do with the bleeding Mr. Jones?
I took him to the cab, back to his house.
Did you have a weapon on you?
I did not.
Did you see guns or knives or switchblades?
Well, I saw a 22.
Who had it?
O'Brien had it.
Where?
Inside his belt, on the side of his hip.
When did you see that?
April 12th.
Before he came out of the supermarket?
Before.
How soon before?
Before I went upstairs.
You ultimately pleaded guilty to a homicide, that is manslaughter in the first degree.
That is correct.
At that time, did Judge Jenkins ask you certain questions about your participation? So that's it, huh?